Welcome to Two Fat Guys and Album Podcast, your weekly dive into iconic albums and our search for the modern classics. In this episode, we dig into the 1975 Pink Floyd album, Wish You Were Here. This album has two main themes. The first is the sense of loss over the absence of their bandmate and co-founder, Syd Barrett. And the second is their sense of being beaten down by the music industry. As a Pitchfork reviewer recently wrote, "Wish you were here is what it says on a postcard from somewhere beautiful, but it also means you're alone." Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more album reviews, in-depth discussions, and music analysis from two fat guys who love talking about music no matter the genre. I am Mike Blackburn. I'll be your host and narrator, and with me, as always, is my good friend, the maestro of music, the siren of sound, the doctor of the diminished chord, Brek Hufnus. Welcome, Maestro.
Oh, good afternoon.
Yeah.
So we still haven't gotten the budget yet for the walk-up music.
No, we have not.
It's begging for it.
We're lacking some budget for a few
You're
things.
doing the read so well.
Yeah.
The walk-up music would really bring it home.
It would. Well, welcome to episode 15.
Yeah, here we are.
So we're excited to get into talking about "Wish You Were Here." It's our first kind of venture into Pink Floyd.
Yep.
We're starting right in the middle, I think.
We are.
Yeah.
Yep.
But normally we go back and we clean up anything from the last episode. We talk about anything. You drop some nuggets on us.
Yeah, the last episode was...
Uh-huh.
That one.
Yeah. 14. It was episode 14.
It was episode 14. And we talked about Discipline by Beat and the New Pornographers.
We were all over Discipline.
Well, here's the thing. That's like a 7-hour episode, so there are no nuggets left over.
That is a lot.
It was podcast magic, and I encourage everybody to check it out because we did take a pretty deep dive on it, and I think it was all good stuff. And I have no leftover nuggets.
We are both big fans and big followers of King Crimson.
Yes.
Having seen them a few times, starting in, I think, like 1983.
Yes.
So,
the original, the tour on the tour, the real Beat tour, I suppose you would say.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then the secondary Beat
performance.
performance.
And I don't know where it is or if it could possibly still fit me, but I had a Discipline shirt from that tour. I remember it. Anyways, we off air or off before we started recording.
Yeah,
we got into. You threw out a topic that kind of baffled me, so I'm going to let you kind of talk about it a little bit.
The dad rock
Dad
topic?
rock.
Okay, here's the thing. Okay, number one, I didn't make this up.
No, I
Number two, it brings me no joy whatsoever to say what I'm about to say.
All right. Go on.
So just so you know, this is going to be hard on both of us, I think.
Okay.
But we had talked previous episodes about classic rock and where does classic rock start and end. And
so the interesting debate about classic rock is it's a radio format.
It's a radio format, not really a genre.
But it has kind of grown to get some parameters around it.
Right.
We can argue or disagree on where the start and stop is.
Right.
But that has parameters. Dad rock is
okay.
I don't get it.
I know you don't. It's not the first thing, but just to go back to since it's a radio format, still talking about classic rock because I'm leapfrogging off of classic rock on this. Okay. So I think what at least I determined based on the classic rock radio stations in Chicago and their playlists and my extensive research into their playlist, that they start their music, I believe, in 1964 with the Kinks.
Yep.
And I believe the latest classic rock song that they play is the Foo Fighters in 1997. Okay. And so I think if we both seem to understand that classic rock is a radio format and there is a major classic rock station, they are defining what classic rock is as far as I'm concerned. And then there was some additional discussion where you had proposed perhaps that, well, you proposed a couple things, but one of the ideas was that classic rock would change, like the meaning of classic rock would change, in that, or perhaps Chauncey had said it. Maybe it was Chauncey, that as time goes on, more things will be considered classic rock. So, like the umbrella of classic rock will change.
Well, at least it'll leak ahead. It'll
It's always going to have a starting date.
Point.
Okay.
Right.
So here's
and the only thing I was saying about it is there's some anchor bands that kind of begin and end, that are the foundation, if you would, of classic rock, and maybe.
Right, and we had talked about the Doors,
maybe it goes this way, maybe it goes that way.
Pink Floyd and things like that.
Yeah, Zeppelin,
and all those. Yeah, I think everybody knows. The sweet spot of classic rock probably is not under any disagreement.
The Mount Rushmore,
as it were.
You will.
Yeah,
and we probably each have a band we could give or take out of that, but there's a foundational set.
Queen, I think, belongs in there maybe.
There's a foundational set of songs, of albums, of bands that make up classic rock.
That's
and
undeniable.
Then there's filler to make it a radio format. That was my argument.
Why must you always tag something in the end? That makes no sense. Okay, so without rehashing that entire discussion,
I think we did. Go on.
So my point being, the whole reason I brought it up is if we were going to start adding more modern bands to the classic rock idea, don't you think we would have done that by now, since it's 30 years past 1997?
Yeah.
And we haven't. So 1997...
Because rock is dead.
So I'm ignoring that because it's not, and we're not talking about that today.
Okay.
You will not get me to bite on that.
Well, I mean, it's why it ends.
But the classic rock ends at 1997, and if the theory that the definition of classic rock would expand as time goes on, it's 30 years after 1997, give or take, and it hasn't changed. So I think classic rock, much in the way that oldies is still oldies and classic rock is still classic rock, there's another genre that has come into play here. And this is where it's going to happen, and you're not going to like it, and I'm not going to like it. And it's not, and this is dad rock. Now, don't just hear me out. So first of all, it's not a defined radio format because nobody can just call it dad rock. It's too male-centric and whatever. Like, they have to come up with something else to call it. But, and we're pretty progressive in our musical tastes, I think.
Absolutely,
we both take pride in our diversity of musical tastes. And the algorithms from Spotify and Apple and all that have always failed me. Like, they always give me 30 songs to listen to, and I like 2 of them, and I'm like, you do not know what I like. The other day, Dad Rock popped up as a suggested playlist on iTunes. And I'm like, I'm too cool for Dad Rock. I'm not Dad Rock. See if you know any of these bands.
All right.
The National.
Yeah.
The Shins.
Yeah.
R.E.M.
Yeah.
Wilco. My Morning Jacket. Spoon. Springsteen. Okkervil River. Do you know Okkervil River, right? By the way, because I'm going to bring that going up later. The Strokes.
Yeah.
Radiohead. Tame Impala.
So this is my playlist.
This is what I'm telling you. Flaming Lips, U2, Tom Petty, New Pornographers. I didn't even just add that in. That was there. Pavement, Kurt Weill, Dawes, Pearl Jam, Steely Dan, Arcade Fire, Death Cab, Drive-By Truckers, and yes, even Guided by Voices.
Wow.
We are busted.
Yeah. I don't even know what to do with that.
I know. It's crushing. But what I will say in defense of this idea is that I think initially dad rock was a little derogative in meaning, the kids these days, that's just dad rock. My son dropped the dad rock thing at me a few years ago. I think I was Bowling for Soup or something. Or it was some band that he told me about. Right. And he had actually seen live and things like that. And then when I said I liked them, all of a sudden it was dad rock. So I thought that was unfair, number one. But I think dad rock has evolved to be that next genre of classic rock. This is all music that is based in rock music. It all kind of evolves from the rock of the 70s, 80s, the independent artists of the 90s, and it's just the next group of
so there's
music.
A lot of alternative bands.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's a lot of, so it's not, the word that you would use would be lame tame. Like it doesn't. I think initially it sort of implied that when the kids were maybe talking about it, but I think it's actually gone on to mean music that is derived from that rock and alternative and post-punk and all that stuff that's still being made today. But it's in that lineage. So I believe we.
Did you tell your son that you were actually more into yacht rock than?
I'm not. I don't see how having your dreams crushed, you just turn that around.
Was nice.
With yacht rock instantly. But that is, so if you go onto your Apple Music or whatever it is, and you type in dad rock, you will love that playlist.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Much to our chagrin.
Yeah. Well, I will have to say that when my oldest, who's now almost 30, ouch, was in college, she was horrified to hear that, like, the progressive kids, the kids who were, like, cutting-edge music or, playing college rock.
Yeah, you're in college, you're playing the fun music and all that.
They were listening to the Mountain Goats.
Right, which is, of course, one of our favorite bands.
When she was like, that's my dad's music. That's not college music.
Right. So I don't think dad rock has the derogatory meaning. At least I'm claiming this, that possibly we would have thought of it as in the past. Maybe it originated that way, but I think it's actually just it's post 80s, 90s rock, and includes all that alternative stuff, all that Americana stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge category. It's not a genre. It's more closer to a radio format.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
So it's probably would be called adult rock these days. Like if you went on an adult...
What's worse?
Well, I know.
Adult contemporary?
Something like that. So anyways...
I just like alternative radio.
Embrace dad rock.
Going back to something that I've always kind of fascinated about, when I triumphantly restore MTV to its glory. But MTV had like.
Should we get a GoFundMe started up?
Maybe, but they played their videos, and then they had like some sort of alt hour or something.
Okay.
That it was like alternative music.
Was that Kurt? What's his name? Hosted it.
Yeah. Well, and then late night you got into some of the weirder videos and weirder bands and whatever, and I believe the alternative, and sometimes those alternative songs got big enough that they jumped to the name.
To me, yeah.
Yeah, and
definitely.
The one I remember I was a big champion for at the time was Safety Dance.
Men with Hats.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
Yep.
Men at Work?
No, Men with Hats. I'm almost positive. Men at Work is like Land Down Under. They were the Australians. Yeah. So I believe Men Without Hats.
Men Without Hats.
Men Without Hats. Safety dance.
Safety dance. And I believe the kids nowadays know that song.
It's a kind of a fun song.
All right, well, then you want to...
Did you know, since we're here,
right.
Can I just throw not really a nugget, but a nugget?
Sure.
Do you know someone just paid $207 million for Napster?
Is Napster still a thing?
It is still a thing. This is true. So for the kids out there, there was a time when you couldn't illegally download music that didn't exist. And then Napster came along, and they made it possible to download music. It was the original file sharing program that brought down the music industry, essentially. Do you realize also it was only active from 1999 to 2001? It only existed for those 3 years before it was shut down, and in that short amount of time, the music industry exploded. But it's still around. And it did, by the way, evolve into Rhapsody, which you may or may not. It was like a streaming service that, one of several, similar to Spotify or something. But it is still around. They legally stream now. You can, I think you can pay a subscription, same as Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. But someone just paid $207 million for it, and I think they're trying to use it for virtual concerts and merchandise. And they're rebranding it as, if it was Rhapsody, I think they're rebranding it as Napster again.
Oh, I would totally.
And they're bringing it. They're trying to bring that back. So that I thought that was
the guy's first name wasn't Lars, was it?
From Metallica.
Yeah.
No,
he was the.
It's outspoken. In front of Congress. Yes, he did. About music, and actually one of the bands, David Lowery, who we're going to talk about today, and from Camper Van Beethoven in our Beyond Classic Rock segment. Yes,
was also a huge anti-streaming kind of champion.
Right. It did make it a lot harder for musicians to get paid for their work.
Well, he said in an interview, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, and this is years ago, but he said for like 100,000 downloads of one of his songs, he got $17.
Okay.
Was when he was with Cracker.
All right.
But that was low or something. He got $17 for a month of downloads. It was like 100 and some thousand.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably pretty reasonable. I think, and you're talking about downloads now. You're talking like people that paid for it.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and that's the other thing that may get lost on younger people today is the fact that if you wanted a song, you didn't have a subscription service. You bought the song.
It was 99 cents for a single.
Song, yeah.
And I don't know, whatever it was for an album. I guess a lot of times it depended how many songs were on the album.
So you had to kind of, much like back in our day when you'd go walk into a record store with your $5, you got to pick an album.
Right.
And either you're going in there for something specific, or if you're just going in there to kind of look, that was your whole thing. You had $5, you could buy an album.
Right, and that's in the bargain bin, by the way. I think I don't think albums were.
No, you at Rolling Stone Records. There was the bargain bin was like $2.99, and they had some stuff, and where I pulled a lot of which may explain my taste in music.
Bargain bin.
Well,
they had
bands that look cool, and it was cool looking albums.
Well, that's the thing, and you go back to the talk we had about the album covers,
exactly.
Which probably would come up a little bit again today, because there's some masterful, Wish You Were Here album cover work.
Yeah, exactly.
So those album covers probably sold a lot of records.
Yeah. So, very cool. And if I bought Napster, I would totally bring the Napster name. I think merchandising alone you could put that back out.
Yeah, get the Napster T-shirts going and the coffee mugs.
Would you wear a Napster T-shirt to a concert? I would totally wear one. Stand in front with my Napster shirt on.
And flip off the band.
Especially if it was Metallica.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, with that, let's drop the needle on side one.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rock. In the red corner, an album that needs no introduction. Ranked 209 by Rolling Stone, this psychedelic art rock masterpiece was released in 1975. Performed by Pink Floyd, this 6 times platinum album topped the charts in both the United States and the UK. This is Wish You Were Here. And in the blue corner, 2 fat guys. This is 2 fat guys and an album.
Wish you were here. Wish you were all here. What a phenomenal album, in my opinion. For only 5 songs. I mean, the first side of this has 2 songs.
They're long. I mean, it's not like it's 15 minutes of music.
No, it's like 45 or something. Right?
Yeah, it's a full. You get your full 2 sides of music worth. Although
Yeah.
Well, you could, like, Shine On You Crazy Diamond is parts 1 through 5. You
Right.
could count that as 5 songs if you
they
want.
don't, but you could. So this is Pink Floyd. Generally, we start by talking about the bands a little bit, maybe the musicianship and the instruments they play, etc. To me, this is version 2 of Pink Floyd. So you had the
Syd
Barrett
Barrett
version
Yep.
era, then you have kind of the Roger Waters era, and then the David Gilmour era. So we're right in the middle, and we're right in the middle of those albums.
Right. This is probably their most popular time, their most productive time.
So I think under Roger Waters they had 5 albums. Am I right?
I'd have to think. Okay, you have,
Dark Side of the Moon.
yeah, this.
Wish You Were Here.
Animals.
The Wall.
Yeah,
And Final Cut.
you got it. I
All
think,
right.
Yep.
There we go. So
Yep.
this is the second under the Roger Waters era. Of course, Roger Waters is the main kind of lyricist
Yes.
for the band for all of these. You have David Gilmour on guitar.
Guitar and vocals.
Yeah.
Rolling
Yeah.
Stone number 14.
Which is fascinating. Did you, by any chance, get to Rolling Stone's review of this album? Did you see the Rolling Stone?
I don't think I did. I read a few reviews, and a lot of them weren't very good.
No. So this is hysterical.
Yeah.
So this is the 1975 review from Rolling Stone of this album. So this album just came out. You know, it's now.
It had no, like, there's no historical context to it. It was, this album came out, and then they.
You think this is immediately following the millions of albums Dark Side of the Moon?
Well, that's
sold?
the problem. I think whatever they followed up Dark Side of the Moon with was gonna couldn't live up to that.
But was very interesting is the paragraph before what I'm going to kind of refer to here was talking about the fact that none of them are very good musicians, and they know it, and you could tell in the tricks and stuff that they did in Dark Side of the Moon was covering up for their lack of musicianship.
So I do have something to say on that.
Well, and then so then this is the quote from this is Rolling Stone magazine's review, 1975 review.
One of the more prominent music reviewing magazines.
Says so talking about the fact that they weren't good musicians.
Right.
And said the problem with this album was that they pretended they were. And so the cardinal offender here is David Gilmour, who by most counts the most technically efficient. Not proficient.
Right, he
efficient.
plays like one note and it lasts for 30 seconds. I'm assuming that's where they're going with that.
He's no championship guitarist. Number 14 on their own
Yeah, they
list.
changed their mind on that.
He nonetheless has enough intelligent ideas to maintain the group's ultra-important link to the bedrock demands of their mass audience. He oversteps his bounds in several places on Wish You Were Here, however, indulging in protracted solos that present him as just another competent guitarist who thinks with his fingers instead of his head.
Do you know who wrote that? Because they should be fired.
No, I don't know.
Okay. I'd be
Top of my-
disappointed if it was one of their...
It's 1975, so they're probably dead.
Probably, but I mean, some of those early guys are still hanging
Well,
on.
they famously, if we ever get to Led Zeppelin, I mean,
Yeah.
they famously hated Led Zeppelin,
Yeah.
like all Led Zeppelin. Like, they've changed their tune on that a little bit.
Yeah,
recently.
I'm going to say I probably am guilty of that as much. I'm much more of a Led Zeppelin fan now than I was back in the day, but that's for another podcast.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting. They've changed their mind on him and put him at 14, which is a pretty good place to be. I think he's phenomenal. And again, he is economical. Like, he makes the guitar sing. You don't have to play a million notes to be a guitar hero. I mean, he makes music, and I think I've said this before, but I think technique on your instrument is great, but I'm much more interested in how you use that technique to make great music.
Yeah.
And I'd rather not hear somebody play a million notes and be completely uninteresting. So I think I'm totally good with the way David Gilmour plays guitar. I will say, to Rolling Stone's point, Roger Waters has admitted straight up that he's a terrible bass player and barely doesn't even like playing the instrument. And David Gilmour actually played bass on quite a few of the recordings. Yeah. So Roger Waters makes no claim to being an excellent bass player,
but being a remarkable lyricist.
Yes,
and,
I think that's what he.
One of the both of the albums we're going to talk about today is very distinctive vocal guys.
Right.
And I mean, Roger Waters does it. Just to kind of wrap it up before we get too deep into those two.
Okay.
Because I don't want to leave out, Nick Mason, who's
the drummer,
the percussionist.
Percussionist,
drummer,
much more than a
drummer. Not coming from me.
Yeah, it's true. Those are big words.
And then Richard Wright, who
keyboards and vocals.
I don't know if you had a chance to kind of look at the list of the keyboards he plays.
I did.
I am baffled, fascinated, and super curious about the fact that how many different types of keyboards do you need to record an album? I mean,
yeah.
Because, he's like 8, 9 different.
Well, I think these.
And why would you do that? Why do you need all these things? I mean, just so no one has to look this up, it's like he plays the Hammond organ, he plays a string ensemble, an ARP string ensemble, a mini Moog, a Steinway.
A Steinway piano, an actual grand piano.
Yeah, Steinway piano.
Yep.
An EMC VCS 3.
Yep.
All right. We're going to gloss
So when
over.
they tour, by the way, when they tour, he needs more than like he needs 2 mini Moogs and he needs 2 synths.
Is that why these guys have these?
They've got
the
racks of
keyboard
keyboards.
guys have things all over the place.
Yeah.
They're playing like this.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
You have the ARP string ensemble. You have the left out the Rhodes suitcase electric piano.
I hadn't gotten there.
And the Hohner clavinet.
The Hover clavinet.
D6.
And the glass harp.
The glass harp.
Dude, what's a glass harp?
All right, where do you want me to start?
Well, start there.
On the glass harp?
Yeah, what's a glass harp?
Okay, the glass harp is just a bunch of glasses filled with water, a bunch of crystal glasses filled with water. That's all that is.
Like a xylophone?
No. Have you ever been at a restaurant? Mm-hmm. You go to the fanciest of fancy restaurants, right?
Yes.
And you have your Dijon ketchup
water.
And all that, and your water and your fancy
Yeah,
glass
yeah.
and your linen napkins,
Yeah.
and you dip your finger in the water and you spin it around the glass and it makes a sound. Are you unfamiliar? Honestly, you're unfamiliar with this.
So we're going out for pizza later on our way to a concert.
Yeah, we'll have to find a pizza place that has crystal glasses. It won't work on regular glass. It has to be crystal.
Crystal glass.
Yeah, it has to be crystal, and you create friction around the rim.
With the water level.
Yes. Look at you, Mr. Science.
Yeah, look at me.
Yeah. So you have, for whatever amount, whichever number of notes you want to have, you would have a different glass for each of those notes. So each glass could make one sound, if you could imagine. And they typically don't lay it out like a piano because it would be too wide. It would take too long. So they just have it, if it was on this table, they would have rows of glasses. And
How do you even know where the notes are?
well, you mark them. You have a way. You code it for yourself. I don't
This
think
sounds
there's.
crazy.
It's Pink Floyd, man.
Well, and there's 3 of them are listed as playing this. So.
Well, you're right, because you had to have chords and things like that. They weren't single note things.
Can you think of one of the songs this shows up on?
"Shine on Your Crazy Diamond" is the song where it shows up on. You don't know it is because you think it's a synthesizer, but it's not. It's crystal glasses.
All right.
All right. So go on YouTube, and I meant to write down this guy, but just go on. I'm telling you, it's
All right,
fascinating.
I believe you.
As soon as you're done with this podcast at home, or if you promise to come back, you can take a break, but you're just gonna type in "Shine on You Crazy Diamond" glass harp. And there's going to be a video that comes up. There's several videos. There's some of the actual band, like David Gilmour and members of the band doing it, sort of in a documentary style. You can see them doing it, and you can hear how they're playing "Shine on You Crazy Diamond." But there's a guy who just put this up last year or 2 years ago. It's a very recent album, and he multi-tracked it so there's video of him playing. He plays the guitar parts. He plays some of the percussion parts. So it's a one-man, multi-track version of "Shine on You, Crazy Diamond," including the glass harp. It's fascinating. It will.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
Okay,
But the glass harp is literally a bunch of crystal glasses filled with water to create different sounds, and the main melody of "Shine on You, Crazy Diamond" is played like this.
Yeah.
It's not hidden. It's the sound of "Shine on You, Crazy Diamond."
That's crazy.
Yep.
Never knew.
And
that.
I never knew it. I found that out 2 days ago.
So, just because it's such a weird name, the other thing that really kind of jumps here is the Honer.
So Honer.
Clavinet.
Yeah, clavinet. It's a so a clavinet is a real instrument but I mean not necessarily digital or not necessarily a synthesized instrument. So there was such a thing as a Renaissance clavinet. It's similar to a harpsichord. It's played by striking strings, so it'll make a string type sound, like a hammer striking a string.
Like
Okay.
the stick thing we talked about with King Crimson?
No, nothing like that. It's a keyboard instrument.
So
The
the
stick,
hammer,
the
the
chap-
hammer.
Yeah,
the
it's a
keyboard.
mechanical
Yeah, yeah.
instrument.
So like
Similar
a piano has a hammer.
Yes,
right.
similar to a
Okay, all right.
piano,
Okay,
except
gotcha,
it's just
gotcha.
a different
It's not
material.
you striking the.
Yeah, it's a rubber pad striking a
gotcha.
string. Okay, I believe is what the Renaissance clavinet was, but similar to a harpsichord. And then there's a more they've created synthesized clavinets, and so Stevie Wonder, if you think of Superstition or something, that's Stevie Wonder's instrument. The sound of Stevie Wonder is the Honer clavinet.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, the Hammond organ is just the. Like if you have a song with a Hammond organ on it, I'm in.
Yeah,
you
it's,
win.
yeah.
That's the kind of the gospel sounding organ that's very prominent in rhythm and blues and gospel music.
Yep.
Amazing sound, and all of these. So again, you asked me why do you need so many, and especially live, they all make different sounds. So if you have a mini Moog. These are actual synthesizers. These are before the days of pressing a button and getting a sound. So you had to set a bunch of dials or literally plug in chords, like an old time phone
System.
bank
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something. And you're plugging in chords and you're setting dials and you're doing this, and it takes time to do that.
So can all of that now be played on a single instrument?
Pretty
today?
much. Yeah, I would say more or less you can. There's nothing like having the originals, of course.
Well, can't fake a Steinway.
Well, they're doing a pretty good job of it these days. I mean, if you want. So in the 80s, after this. So as I said, all this music, actual synthesizers, analog, dials and switches, has to be programmed. In the 80s, when you start to think about the sounds of 80s music, keyboard-dominated music, there's a specific sound of that music that's instantly recognizable as the 80s.
The synth era
The synth
Rush,
era.
right?
Yeah, and so the Roland Jupiter 8 came out in 1981. The Yamaha DX7 came out in 1983. These are only two of several really common keyboards of that time. But the big deal about those is they were pre-programmed. You could start hitting a button and getting a particular sound, and you wouldn't have to. You could still program them yourself if you wanted. But then you could also hit a button and quickly go to a certain thing. And I don't want to go through the entire history of synths, but nowadays, if you go see a live concert, there's about a 98% chance you're going to see a red keyboard on stage, and that is the Nord Stage 4. And that is pretty much the industry standard. There are others. And again, certain keyboards get certain sounds. Certain keyboards have really great piano sounds or really great organ sounds. So they all have their strengths and weaknesses. They all have, but the reason why they have, even Pink Floyd had all these different instruments is they all made different sounds.
Sure.
Right. But now the Nord can do a lot, and it's pretty much it can make all these sounds. So, for example, a Hammond organ is like 400 pounds, like an actual old timey Hammond organ. We saw one. We saw one at Fitzgerald's in the side bar.
Oh yeah,
remember?
Yep.
Right? We walked in. There's
Yep.
someone that was a Hammond organ. It's a beast. It's an actual big organ. So 400 pounds. Could you imagine carting that around gig to gig? It's not cool.
No.
Right.
That's why you had roadies.
That's why you have roadies. So, eventually, you can get a Hammond organ now that's a keyboard, like
Carry it under your arm.
much more portable. Yeah. And even more than that, you could just buy the Hammond organ, like, floppy disk and pop it into your you can buy those sounds. Like, those sounds have all been digitized and recreated. So it goes back to your idea about, do CDs sound as good as vinyl? Do these digital versions sound as good as the originals? I don't know, but
we're getting better.
But a 20-pound keyboard is much cooler than a 400-pound organ to carry around in some practicality.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the deal with. It's super interesting.
It is.
And I'm not even like a keyboard nerd. Like, you could, like, people that are into this stuff could go on forever.
So I mean, so Richard Wright here, just so everybody doesn't have to look this up, he played 9 different types of keyboards, or on this album, which there's only 5 songs.
Right, but think of all the different sounds you're
Yeah,
doing,
no, I
and all the
get
layers
it. I
of
just
sound.
think it's just amazing,
Yeah.
Um,
I think at one point it caused some friction in the band. This band had a lot of friction. There's a lot of, well, I mean, there's a lot of creative, what's the word I'm thinking of? But,
yeah. So
friction, creative friction, I guess, for lack of a better word. And they even, like, I don't know if it was David Gilmour or Roger Waters, but one of them was like poo-pooing Richard Wright because, he got a new toy. Richard Wright got a new toy, and now we got to have it on this album, and whatever it was. And I don't know what it was specific to, but they definitely would say the same thing. But to say that they're not amazing musicians is to, I guess, put a bow around it is a joke. They may not be technically the most fastest players or anything, but they make amazing music.
They do. All right, so moving toward the album a bit.
Yeah.
You got to start with the cover.
Do you know, can I tell you one other thing, one other personnel? Do you know who sings Have a Cigar?
I was going to get there when we got to the song.
All right, well, we'll hold off on it then. The cover, we had talked about this previously on one of our shows when we talked about Hipgnosis.
And for the life of me, I saw that, and I tried to go back and remember which album we were talking about.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find it.
You couldn't find the documentary?
No, we talked about.
Oh, you just couldn't find
which
that
album?
reference.
Which album we had already referenced?
You're right. I don't even know when we talked about it, but it was.
But we brought Hipgnosis up again because I didn't know what you were talking about, and so it's a. They design album covers or album jackets, which was a big deal in that day.
It was a massive deal,
Yeah.
right? I talked about the documentary on Netflix, Squaring the Circle, and that documentary is about the art design company called Hipgnosis, who did virtually every album in this era. It's a fascinating documentary, but more specifically, they did the Wish You Were Here album.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked about alienation as part of it and criticism of the music business, and they tried to capture that in the album.
Yes.
So most of us know, I think, the Burning Man cover. Right? The guy, 2 guys in a suit, shaking hands. One of them's on fire.
Right.
And I think it's sort of a reference of getting burned by the music industry. Mm-hmm. They tell a great story about how they got like the stuntmen to do it, and it was a really dangerous stunt because it was stationary, and a lot of stuntmen wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But then the guy that ultimately did do it was like in a million movies, but this is the only thing he's famous for. He's like, everybody knows me from this.
Yeah.
But they covered it in black shrink wrap. And this is the kind of thing Hipgnosis would do because they had unlimited money at that time.
Yeah.
The record companies had unlimited money, and Hipgnosis could pretty much, they could charge anything that they want. They could ask for the most ridiculous things. They would do the most ridiculous things. Some of it's sort of tongue-in-cheek. Some of it, I mean, definitely it turned out to be great art, but also I think there's a side of it that was, I wonder if we can get away with this. So they had this album cover that they charged whatever, $50,000 for, or 100, whatever that was, and then they covered it up and put it in black shrink wrap so you couldn't see the album cover. And they said, well, that was the imagery of being absent.
Yeah.
And so that's how they sold it. It was...
So it really... So a lot of the themes, so Shine On Your Crazy Diamond, the album cover itself, is a lot of this criticism of the music industry. And it's both, you know, they have two, like, things working against them here, which are both, you know, also made them all millionaires.
Yes.
But the first was the enormous success of the previous album, which was Dark Side of the Moon.
Right.
Which sold a ridiculous amount
right.
of
It was
albums.
on. I don't have the
And
numbers
still,
in front of me.
still
but
is selling albums.
right.
today.
It was at one point on the charts forever for like decades. It was on the charts.
So you have that kind of in front of it. So, and all the pressure that goes along with having such a successful.
Yeah. Do it again.
Right. Exactly. And then they also have this like sense of so there's a loss of kind of innocence. There's a loss of freedom.
Yeah.
That goes with being, you know, this sort of superstar. And then they also blame the music industry, the pressure of the music industry, for the mental breakdown of their co-founder, Syd Barrett.
Yeah, and it's possible, and I don't know everything about it, but I think drugs had a lot to do with that as well.
Probably.
So, and I think he was not, maybe he was prone to that sort of a thing, and the music industry pushed him over the edge, but but he was not part of, as you said, this is the Roger Waters era, so he was not part of this album or Dark Side of the Moon, and quite honestly, all the albums that predated that are much more experimental, and I don't know there was a ton of pressure on them at all. Like I think they only had moderate success until Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah. And
so I would have to just look deeper into that claim.
Yeah. But we're only on episode 15.
Yeah.
We cover a couple albums each episode, but we've already dealt with mental illness and tragedy of several artists, and we can probably all think of other artists who, you know,
right. And
we talked about other bands.
Yeah, you wonder if it's it's that what's the causality of it though? You know, I mean, are troubled people drawn to music? Does the music industry? Yeah,
creative people.
I mean, you know, it's been said, you know, that great art comes from pain, and it's hard. You know, there's a lot of evidence to that, and maybe we get the benefit of it, but there's that element.
Yeah. So. So that kind of talks about a couple of these songs. So "Shine On You Crazy Diamond" is kind of their tribute to Syd Barrett.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Their shout out to their friend.
Right.
Who apparently made an appearance in the studio when they were recording this.
It was like unrecognizable.
Right. And just glazed over and,
yep.
Totally spaced out.
Yep.
And then that's followed. The only other song on the first side of this album is "Welcome to Machine," which is this sort of commentary on the music industry.
Yeah, the disillusionment of it. Right.
Which leads us to side 2 and the "Have a Cigar." You were going to...
Well, so this is also something I didn't know. And we've talked about albums that I hadn't listened to, and we only learned like you recommend an album sometimes that I'd never heard before, and then I do my research on it. And but this is an album I'm very familiar with.
Yeah.
Like I listened to a gajillion times, and not only did I not know about the glass harp until looking deeper into it, I also did not know that David Gilmour or Roger Waters, none of the members of sang this song. And I always thought it was weird. I've always have thought, who's singing this song? And if you go see them live, I've seen Roger Waters sing this song, and I've seen David Gilmour sing this song.
Yep.
So Roy Harper is the guy that sings this song. And my understanding is neither of Gilmour or Waters were happy with their own vocals and felt like they wanted to get somebody else. And you may have more information on Roy Harper than I do, but he was a fairly popular musician back then, and they brought him in as a guest artist to sing this song.
Well, they didn't even bring him in. He happened to be down.
He just happened to be there.
He happened to be down the hall at another studio recording his own solo album.
Right, yes.
They brought him over, and he sang the song, and it worked for them, and they used it.
Yeah.
And he said in a 2011 interview, so now 30-some years later.
Since the album, yeah.
Interview that he was unhappy. He has not been credited by the band for singing the song for the first 10 or 15 years. So we didn't know about it.
Because it wasn't
nobody
on the
knew about
album.
it.
Okay.
So he may have been listed as an additional musician, but it didn't say what he was.
He didn't say
he didn't get the
sang
singing credits. And he also said he was not paid the agreed payment.
Right.
So he wanted tickets for life to the cricket grounds, Lord's cricket grounds.
Yeah, if you're into that sort of thing.
But he only received a few £100.
All right, which is probably not going to buy you tickets for life.
I'm not sure what a few £100 really works out to be.
Yeah.
He hired a lawyer. They eventually, called it ironic because the album was about getting ripped off by the music industry.
And they ripped him off.
Yeah. So he called it a self-fulfilling prophecy of the dirty music business.
I agree. I think it
was great.
It's perfect. And also I think it's perfect because the song is, this is a song that has the famous line, "Which one's pink?" in it.
Right.
Where the band is supposedly talking to a music executive and wants to know which member of the band is pink when it's just the name of a band. So to actually not have a member of the band singing kind of works because you had this other person taking the role of a music executive.
It is. And then that's followed by "Wish You Were Here."
What do you say?
Probably has one of the great guitar parts of.
One of the great everything parts.
Yeah.
No, it's one of my greatest songs of all time. Rolling Stone has it criminally ranked at 302. This is
the song.
This song.
Oh no.
Yeah, no. This song is.
Yeah.
I don't know what the numbers would be. Top 10, top 20 for me. I mean, this is an all-time great song in my book. Just a wonderful song.
Yeah. And then the last song on the album is "Shine On You Crazy Diamond" again. 6 through 9. Parts 6 through 9.
Right. So the last 5 songs.
5.
I mean, if you're really caught up and there's only 5 songs, we could stretch it out.
It's just, I guess I never even thought about. So I as well have listened to this a million times, and this was a CD you could put on driving down the road, and you didn't have to skip anything, you didn't have to turn anything, you just listened to it.
Right.
And it just all flowed so well together as a complete story, as a complete kind of vision. 5 songs or 500 songs, it doesn't really matter.
It was an album full of...
It's a great 40 minutes, 45 minutes.
Absolutely.
All right, anything else you want to talk about?
We skipped over some stats. Can I just drop a few stats on you?
I assume they would been in the scroll.
Yeah, they will be.
All right.
Should I leave it out?
No, go ahead.
UK number 1, US number 1. So number 1 in both sides of the pond. Rolling Stone has it at 209. 6-time platinum album.
Did they criticize Gilmour for
I don't
not
know.
being a...
I don't know how they certainly did a about face. Hey, kudos to them. All right, they saw their and the it is one person writing a review, and I think when they do these lists, it's a more of a survey of critics and things like that. So it is one of the top 500 albums in Rolling Stone. Oh, and now I'm losing myself. Oh, Pink Floyd. They are a Hall of Fame band.
Yep.
They have 4 albums in the top 500 albums of Rolling Stone.
So I assume it's this, Dark Side of the Moon, The Wall.
Piper's at the Gate of Dawn.
Oh, and Piper's at the Gate.
Yep, that's the one that...
the first album.
Yeah.
Piper's, that's a great...
So this is a great band and a great album.
Amen. And the final line, I got to say this is, if we're done with the album, the final line in the review was, this is Rolling Stone's final line. Pink Floyd should know better than to turn around and imitate the transparent traditional rock band mythology to which they supposedly presented an alternative.
Speechless. Absolutely speechless.
This is a review that should be printed off and like framed. It
Oh
is
yeah,
so
right.
Just terrible.
Like how wrong could you possibly be?
You know, and they admit to it and they joke with it a lot, and they've written articles about
oops,
right, swings and misses from the past years.
Yeah.
You know, and I get it. You review things in real time, and just because you're the album reviewer doesn't mean you necessarily like a particular band. Like there was a, like I said earlier, there was a guy who just hated Led Zeppelin, and he just key album
at
reviewer.
any chance he had.
Yeah.
But even a lot of times you can listen to the kernel of truth in some of these and say, oh, I see where he's going with that, and I get that makes no sense to me. Like there is nothing justifiable in any way in that review.
No, it's a miss.
It's a big miss.
So before we leave this, we have a couple of categories we always drop on our albums.
Okay.
We ask if they are a landmark album, and we ask if they're a perfect album.
Okay, I'm going to start with perfect album because it's a perfect album. As you said, you're just going to put it on and listen to it in its entirety. I also pulled out the headphones for this. In preparation for the show. I'm like, this must be listened to with headphones. And corded headphones, as we talked about before. If you want the full experience of high definition sound, of lossless sound, you can't use Bluetooth. No matter how good your Bluetooth headphones are, Bluetooth cannot produce lossless sound. So you must plug your headphones in or listen to it on speakers and such to get the full enjoyment of it. And that's what I did. So it's a perfect album.
No argument from me.
Yeah. I'm going to maybe surprise some people here. I'm going to say not a landmark album because it's in the middle of the pack. And I don't think there's anything completely new or different about this album. It's a great, 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 great album. It's one of my favorite albums. It will be ranked very high. But it goes back again. I feel like we have to rework the landmark thing, or we need another category because I'm become awkward about the landmark thing.
Well, we started with great.
I know, but when we started with great, you meant landmark.
Yeah,
and really, so you would ask me, do I think it was a great album? And I was like, oh, yeah, this is a great album. I love this album. But then I would realize after the show, you meant, oh, was this a landmark album?
Yeah.
And
did this move the industry?
Yeah, did this move the industry? So I just feel like I need another category. I don't think this wasn't the first album. I mean, spoiler alert, there will be other Pink Floyd landmark albums, but this one just isn't the originator.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing album, and
but you wouldn't have that argument with like Dark Side of the Moon or The Wall. I mean, we haven't
right?
gotten to 'em,
Do we really? Do I have to?
No, I'm just so thinking.
Dark Side of the Moon, as you said, is the first of this iteration of Pink Floyd, and it is different from their previous albums,
and it influenced.
A lot of things. So it being the first is important. And then the wall also was very unique in my mind. So even though it was the
Had
end
so
of
much
this,
more around it.
so even though it was the end of this era, it also presented its own uniqueness. This one fits very nicely in. It's like there is no disparagement of this album at all when I say I just don't feel like it gets landmark status, but it's an amazing album.
I think that's totally fair.
Okay.
And I think we're going to have to leave it there. So now we have a sponsor and a live read, which we might be prepared for.
Getting there.
Yeah.
Two Fat Guys in an Album is sponsored by Deeper Connections Counseling, helping people connect to themselves, the people they love, and the world around them through individual and couples therapy for Illinois residents both in person and online. More information at dcctherapy.com.
So, unfortunately, it's hard to have a music podcast and not talk about mental health.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people, you see the struggles, and I have to say it's significant because it's every era. It's not just like the 60s or the 70s, but you see it, you can just watch it follow through the eras of some of our favorite bands and people. And unfortunately, we lose some of those people way too early, which is all a very nice way to say there's nothing wrong with struggling with some thoughts, feelings, ideas, and you shouldn't let those feelings affect relationships. So, don't be afraid to reach out and find somebody to talk to. These are if you're in Illinois, these are a wonderful group of people to do it. If you're not in Illinois, I'm sure they can recommend or you can find some help elsewhere. But talk to somebody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. There's a couple other sponsors, so we'll be right back.
Hey, Two Fat Guys and an Album fans. This is Diane Blackburn, realtor with Baird & Warner and proud sponsor of this podcast. I pride myself in being committed to serve as a trusted real estate advisor for all my clients. Whether you're looking to sell, buy, rent, or lease, feel free to reach out and let's chat about how we can work together to make it happen. If you're watching, scan the QR code for my website or give me a call at 630-638-1999. See you on the flip side.
Are you someone who needs help with their Instagram or TikTok? Well, you're in luck. LR Media is here to help. Email me at laurarose2003@aol.com to get started. Let's make your social media shine.
So welcome to Side 2. This is where we kind of cover some of the things we're listening to, maybe some new music we've stumbled upon, some shows we're going to see, some upcoming shows that or people that are touring that we think are interesting. And I think we're struggling with this segment a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It may morph here in the near future, so this might be one of the last times you hear us talk about it in this way. We're contemplating using this to do some deeper dives into new music, so new music reviews.
Yes.
Because there are some phenomenal things that are coming out that I don't think we're really giving.
Well, they don't quite fit. They're certainly not classic rock.
Right.
And they're not like hidden gems beyond class. Like we're talking about new albums. We're talking about albums
Brand
that
new
came
stuff,
out this week. And instead of just talking about, hey, I like this album, like we did Jack White, for example.
Yep.
But maybe the Jack White album would fit better in this segment because it's brand new.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I've talked to a few episodes, more than a few episodes about Car Seat Headrest.
Exactly.
And they really deserved more time than even I gave them. They are great, Car Seat Headrest. And there's a couple new albums that have come out in the last month and a half that I've had a chance to listen to, and I think they're phenomenal and deserve a deeper dive. And I know you have some as well.
Right. We were just talking about it a little bit. So instead of just saying, hey, I really like this album and I really like this song, I mean, maybe it's just not giving it the due that it deserves.
So I think we're toying with the idea of just making this kind of a single album sort of quick review of new music.
Yeah, I'm sure we could throw in a quick word about a concert or something.
Yeah. So Anywho.
Anyhow, well, so the song that I found, strangely, is not new. It's from 2013, but it's a band called Okkervil River.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of our dad rock bands, actually.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I had this weird deja vu with it, actually. Like, it popped up on my list somehow, and I'm like, I love this song, but I don't know if I've ever heard this song before. But I love this song. Maybe I heard this song. It was really strange. But it's called Down, Down the Deep River by Okkervil River off their 2013 album, The Silver Gymnasium. Are you familiar with this song in particular? Like, you would have to know it. It's a specific song.
Yeah, no.
So this song, what grabbed me about it, it sounds like The Cure meets Americana. Like, his vocal stylings were very, now I'm going to forget, Robert Smith. Yeah, Robert Smith. It's kind of like The Cure met Dawes or something like that. It's like Americana style music. I think he's from the Pacific Northwest, so he falls into that thing that you like.
I think you're right.
But he had this this Cure stylings. It has a Hammond organ in it. It has a slide guitar in it. There's some real nifty guitar. It's got everything I like in music. And the interesting thing to me as well, this is a song I listened to like 20 times. Like, this is how much I like this song. And I thought it's a 6-minute and 32-minute song. And I thought it sounds like he's trying to be the next American Pie. Like, it sounded like, because it has like the same sort of verse over and over again with different, I mean, I know all songs have the same verse over and over again with different lyrics. But this was, to me, like
You're a little wound up about this one.
It was like in an American Pie style, like American Pie Light, and it had these sort of vignettes of growing up and snippets of memories and lots of room for interpreting the lyrics. It's a really... I just feel like this guy tried to write American Pie. And it doesn't sound like an American Pie ripoff, but it just sounds like the next American Pie. I love the song. I could not stop listening to it.
That's awesome.
And the whole album, The Silver Gymnasium, is a terrific album, and it could show up again.
That's
be
2013, though.
It's a 2013 song that I just found. Yeah.
Very cool. Haven't seen you this excited about a song in a while.
I'm really excited about it. Yeah. I gotta be honest. So that probably means you'll listen to it and think, what?
Maybe. Well, I probably threw a couple at you this week myself that you're probably going, what?
Not so much.
There's 2 albums that released here in the last month, let's say, that I think are worth. One is by a debut album by a band called Horse Vision.
Yeah.
They were classified by a reviewer as post-rock. It's what rock happens to rock after it's dead.
You and him should write a book.
Yes. So, but to me, there's a little bit of like shoegazer in here, a little bit of emo vibe kind of going on.
Right.
So it's kind of along those lines, which are both pretty popular in music. Shoegazer is kind of making a comeback these days. But it's their debut album is called Another Life, I believe, if I can read my own handwriting. A song that I would recommend, there's 2 songs I would say to recommend if you want to give them a try. One is Animal, which I shared with you.
Yeah, I listened to it and I liked it.
So it's kind of I don't know what they're doing here. There's sort of like it's heavily electronic.
Right. And almost and again, I'm just throwing out because I'm throwing out Radiohead, and it does, but it's not. But you could hear influence.
But
perhaps.
it's almost like their instruments are going through something else.
Some processing.
Processing.
Yes.
Yeah. So everything from the vocals to all the
right.
music is heavily processed.
Yes.
Partly Get By
but
is another album.
Yeah, but it's still kind
really good.
It's still kind of singer-songwriter-y.
It is.
So that's the interesting thing about it to me is it has this sort of modern electronic sound to it, but it it still has that singer-songwriter that we like. It's a more modern sounding.
With a lot of distortion
Yes.
and other things kind of mixed in
Yeah,
to give it that shoegazer emo sort of vibe
Yes.
to it while being, storytelling.
Yes.
Yeah, it's different. Very different from a lot of stuff I would recommend or normally kind of side with, but I think it's a strong album from a new band. The other one I've just stumbled upon, and this was what kind of pushed me more to thinking that we're not. You've mentioned songs and albums that deserve more time.
Yes.
I've talked about Car Seat Headrest a lot. This is another band that I think needs to have more time, and this is an album that needs more time. The band is Momma. They're out of California. They formed in 2015. They just released a new album called Welcome to My Blue Sky. They actually got together over their love for the band Pavement.
Oh,
How
okay.
many times has Pavement come
A
up
lot.
in a 15-episode
Yep.
podcast? So they all were fans of Pavement. They came together, formed a band. They can't be that old. They met in high school. And,
Okay. So there is a current band
called Momma.
that's
Yeah.
modern. Now I know they haven't gotten to the arena yet, but
No, they're playing Thalia Hall
okay.
May 20th.
Nice.
I'm scheduled to be out of town,
Oh,
but
darn it.
it's a Tuesday night, so
Yeah, it's a school night.
yeah, always tough. But a couple of songs off of this album, I think the whole album is great. It's worth giving a listen to. I Want You Fever would be one song that I'd recommend off of this. The second one I would recommend is Ohio All the Time. Again, the band is Momma, and the album is Welcome to My Blue Sky. Did you get a chance to listen
Just
to
the song.
Yep.
Yeah,
just-
I liked it. No, I also liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have time to delve into the whole entire albums, but
no,
I
I
did
sent
like
it
the
to you.
songs. Like an
Couple
hour
hours
ago.
Yeah. No, but it's I'm anxious to kind of dive in more to them, but I think this is a great band.
And why
up
aren't
and
they
coming.
more known?
I don't.
Yeah, that's one of the great questions that I always have. Like when I find a band that I like, and it's like, why doesn't everybody know about this band?
So I'm hoping that the podcast will do a little bit more.
Yeah, let's hope.
of it. I'm going to go very analog here.
What is that?
This, my friends watching on YouTube, is a newspaper.
Oh my goodness!
For those listening on just a podcast, I have
It's an
actual
physical copy of the Chicago Tribune.
And last Sunday, they had 100 concerts for Chicago Summer 2025.
Oh gosh! Did you just get that out of your cat box or your bird cage?
I was at my mother-in-law's, my
Oh,
90-year-old
and you
mother's
found
house,
it.
and she had this.
100 concerts.
And I'm like, can I take the art and entertainment section? And she said, you don't want the sports? No. Give me this. It is fascinating how many bands are coming to the Chicagoland area. We've talked about a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know Taste of Chicago is still a thing?
Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah.
It's crowded there. Nobody goes there. It's too crowded.
But holy cow, it's good to be in Chicago. You're kind of run down. August from start to finish is like Death Cab. Well, Cyndi Lauper, then Death Cab for
Future
Cutie.
Hall of Famer Cyndi Lauper,
Yeah.
I think.
Man I Trust, Rod Stewart,
Uh-huh.
Linkin Park,
Mm-hmm.
Goo Goo Dolls, Tate Ray, never heard of.
Oh, well, it's for the kids.
Playing at the United Center, so playing for a lot of kids.
Uh-huh.
Really?
I've heard of Tate Ray.
Yeah. Blue Oyster Cult, playing at
Are they
the
still alive?
Riviera. I don't know how many of the original band is still
Okay.
there. Indigo Girls.
Will they
9
have a
inch,
cowbell?
9 inch. Yes, they do. 9 Inch Nails. Lenny Kravitz, Neil Young, Oasis.
Yeah,
My
I mean,
Chemical Romance.
yeah, I mean, some of these, like, you would have to choose, probably. There's going to be conflicts of options. I mean, there's a couple you didn't mention. There's Blues Traveler, the Gin Blossoms, and Spin Doctors at Ravinia
All
in
together?
July, all together.
Are we going to that?
We could. And then there's
Why wouldn't we?
It's I don't know. Oh, I know why. Because it's July 26th, and I may not be in Chicago on July 26th myself.
Oh, all right.
But you might want to go see them. I believe I've seen all three bands separately. But
why not?
Yeah. And then I think we did buy our ticket to Flaming Lips and Modest Mouse, but that's not in the summer, is it? That's a little later. That might be in October. Bright Eyes is playing the Salt Shed. We're going to see that.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were.
And I'm just going to throw in while you're reading the newspaper, their 2024 album, 5 Dice All Threes, is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting concert because it sounds different from their other songs. I'm looking forward to hearing how they mix their classic songs with their new songs because they have kind of a different sound going on.
We'll have to review the playlist on the drive down.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
Any more concerts on the
Well,
list?
one that surprised me is Mount Joy is coming.
Why does that surprise you? They do the, I believe they do the Salt Shed on New Year's, and they sell out like 3 days in a row at the Salt
They're playing
Shed.
the United Center.
Well, yeah, because they're a band. Are they new enough for you to count as rock, or rock is dead? I mean, this is, again...
Well, that really doesn't surprise you that they would sell out?
No, because I don't act like a 88-year-old man. I know that there's new music, and...
No, it's just... Well, I like Mount Joy. I
Yeah.
didn't think of them on that level.
Yeah, no, they honestly, I think they sell out 3 days at the Shed for New Year's, or they have in very recent years.
Looking forward to a lot of great shows this summer.
Yep.
Chicago.
No, I
I'm
could
sure
pretty much
elsewhere
go
around.
almost every night to see
Yep.
a concert, and
Spend a lot of money.
yeah, that's
We need more listeners on this
That's
podcast
gonna be a problem.
to afford our
concert
habits.
right. But
Yeah.
we'll tell you about the concerts,
Yeah,
so it's all
we
going to work out. It's
can
the
go with us.
teamwork. You could, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that's
All
all
right.
I got for side 2.
Awesome. So let's switch albums and start with side 3 after this sponsor.
This episode of Two Fat Guys in an Album is brought to you by Smidge Films. If you're looking to bring your ideas to life with some cool cinematic work, Smidge Films has you covered. From brand stories to promos, we'll help you tell your story in a way that really sticks. Check us out and see what we can do for you.
So welcome to side 3, which is Beyond Classic Rock. We take a look at an album that is worth kind of giving a spin. It's our search for the modern classics. This album, I will have to say here to all you listening at home, I thought could be a main album. I think this album is good enough. There's enough here to talk about. There's enough interesting things musically that this should be a focus album. It fits into an era, and this is the 1989 classic album by Key Lime Pie by Camper Van Beethoven.
Yeah, you had me at key lime pie. It is my favorite dessert of all time.
It is, yes. I knew that.
Yeah.
Camper Van Beethoven, is that the Wheel and Fortune before and after? Is that where that came from?
I think they just randomly made it up.
Well, you
Is
can't-
that Camper Van
Camper
Beethoven. Like Ludwig van Beethoven.
Beethoven.
Yeah, it must be. Is that true, or are you
I have
asking
no
me?
idea. I was totally asking you.
It totally worked.
I don't know where it came from.
So the answer is yes, but I don't think they knew that. I think they
alright.
just made it up, but you're correct.
It's a Wheel of Fortune before and after
It is.
category answer.
Right, Camper Van.
This would be the ultimate Wheel of Fortune.
Ludwig van Beethoven.
Wouldn't this be the ultimate Wheel of Fortune before and after?
It is
Because it's
before and after.
before and after, and actually a name of a band.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's cool. All right.
it's like a double entendre.
No, you should really look that up sometime.
Go on. Tell me more about this album of yours.
So, this is the kind of Camper Van Beethoven is the genius of David Lowery, who formed this band with Jonathan L. Siegel. I don't know if he actually has an L in there, but I've always assumed his middle name is Livingston.
Right, you would think Jonathan Livingston Siegel. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can have that. All right.
Who went on to Sparkle Horse, by the way?
David Lowery played on the first 2 Sparkle Horse albums.
Oh, really?
Not, I don't know if Siegel went over there, but
yeah, I think.
But David Lowery did play. So to tie all this
right.
how small the music industry is for our 15th show.
We've already
we talked about Sparkle Horse last week.
Yeah.
And what a great band guy, whatever that is.
Yes.
A lot of the guitar playing on that was David Lowery.
Okay.
So he performed on the Sparkle Horse's 1998 album, Good Morning Spider, and the hard-to-read 1995 album, Viva Dixie Submarine Transmission Plot.
It's a very long
word.
title.
Yes. Some other good artists on this, Tim Cook on pedal guitar, Garth Hudson. Is that a shrug?
It's a shrug. I don't know.
So Interlude is
Nope.
Garth Hudson.
Oh, okay. On the accordion?
On no, he was playing on some sort of weird organ.
I assumed it was an
Like-
accordion, but I don't know.
No, it was an organ, and actually Interlude is him just warming up, making sure the organ is.
Oh, is
and
that
he
right?
was just playing.
And they
something.
recorded it?
They recorded it and put it in as number 10.
Oh,
Garth Hudson, of course, is one of the founding members and members of the band, the band,
the band.
the capital T,
All right.
capital B, the band.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he came to play the organ on a couple of songs, and like I said, when he was setting it up, and was some goofy pipe organ thing.
All right.
And when he was setting it up, and he was playing around on it, and they recorded it, and it became the song Interlude. So there you go. There's your little.
I'm
little
upset I
tidbit.
don't know the name of the instrument. I'm going to have to look
Yeah.
that up.
Would
So
have-
sorry I don't have that. I bet you
that'll
that'll be a nugget.
Yeah, absolutely. So this album has the a cover basically. The big song on this that was the number
Right.
one
Pictures of Matchstick Men.
Pictures of Magic Man. It's actually a cover of Status Quo's song.
How much do you know about Status Quo?
Not that much. I did listen to this, and I listened to their version of this.
Yeah.
And it's extremely similar, other than the
Instead of a violin, it's a
the
guitar.
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought it was even like a synthesizer or something. So the start of his from Camper Van Beethoven is a violin,
Yes.
and then it explodes into a drum,
Uh-huh.
and the drums is sort of missing from the Status Quo version.
Okay.
It's much more subdued.
Status Quo is more
I like that.
psychedelic, a little more psychedelic rock. From
Yeah.
it's a 1968 song,
Yeah,
I think.
probably.
So,
Yeah.
so it's from that psychedelic rock era, and it has that vibe to it, kind of like a Magical Mystery Tour or Her Satanic Majesty or something like that, or like Moody Bluesy or something. Yeah, so it has that. But
Right.
do you know that Status Quo is one of the most popular bands in UK history?
Nothing surprises me about the UK history anymore, from what we've kind of learned.
They've been active for 60 consecutive years. They formed in 1962. Now, you have your Ship of Theseus stuff, where what happens when you take a member out of the band, is it the same band? This is kind of the opposite. They're the same group of people with several names, with several band names. And so they've changed the name of the band a few times over the years, but the personnel has remained the same. They charted 60 songs in the UK, more than any other band. And by that I mean more than the Beatles, more than the Rolling Stones, more than the Who, more than any other band. They had 29 consecutive UK albums charted. They're the 10th best-selling UK single. So they're the 10 best list of singles in the UK of all time. They're only one of 50 artists to have more than 500 total weeks on the UK albums chart. So apologize for this digression.
Yeah.
But I was fascinated by that because I really
yeah.
wasn't familiar with Status Quo.
No.
And apparently a lot of people in England are.
Yes, apparently. Before we actually dive into much more of this, just talking about the artist, David Lowery. So this is like at a time where the band Camper Van Beethoven is breaking up. There's a lot of tension in the band.
Mm-hmm. This was their last record.
Jonathan L. Siegel left prior to this.
Right.
They've since kind of reunited, and they've
Right,
been
because
touring.
they've figured out how popular they are.
Right.
Yeah.
But David Lowery then went on to found Cracker,
Okay. Yes.
and so Cracker, of course, is. So what? Kicking myself here. 20 years too late.
Uh-huh.
But at the Vic Theater, which is one of our favorite theaters
great
here
venue.
in Chicago,
Yep.
it's not too big, not too small,
Right. Always a great vibe there, great crowd.
and easy to get to for us.
Yes.
There was a double feature band twofer with Camper Van Beethoven and Cracker,
Oh, sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
because
Right. You had an automatic opening act.
well,
and then,
two of them kind of just went over and
Right.
played with the other band. Yeah. So that was 2004. That
Oh, okay.
would have been phenomenal to see that.
I might have been busy that year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know where I was. But I really am going to hate it when you say this is like a one-song album, because just running through these before I let you just destroy
were you
this.
not talking to Chauncey, and you were trying to also describe this album to him, and you said, it's got pictures of Matchstick Men on it. I didn't hear you say the names of any other songs.
No, but I mean that's a number one hit. You would know that, but the Jack Ruby. So the second song, Jack Ruby. Third song, Sweetheart. Fourth song, When I Win the Lottery, and the fifth song, I Was Born in a Laundromat, are all really good songs.
Mm-hmm.
There's some throwaways on here that I would say are not my favorite.
Oh, I might like this album more than you do then.
Yeah, but I think those 5 songs are phenomenal. Pictures of Magic Men is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I like the final song, Come On, Darkness.
Tell me your throwaways.
The Humid Press of Days is not really. Flowers is like,
Really?
yeah, I'm not all that keen on. But I like.
Fascinating. No, I have a little bit of a different take. I think it's going to surprise you a little.
So, do you hear like the Eastern European kind of
Well,
Russian
sure. I mean, that's the
vibes?
violin thing, like the opening theme. The
Right.
Eastern European thing I hear especially comes with the violin, and that's to me I would call that gypsy jazz. It's just you're using a particular scale. Like you have Western music, which has certain scales that make it sound like Western music, and you have then, say, Arabic music or Israeli music or whatever, Middle Eastern music, or in this case, gypsy jazz. And it sounds that way because partially you're just using different sets of notes to make those songs. So yeah, I hear the Eastern influence.
Yeah, it's good. So Jack Ruby is I would think that's a I think that would be a song right after your own.
I do like the song. What are you?
That's the song started playing in my hearing aids, and I got lost.
No! I thought you were going to play the song for us.
No, I'm like, what is going on?
Siri, play
Yeah.
Jack Ruby.
Yeah, exactly. Don't do that. Not funny. That's not funny.
Oh, we found a fun game. Go
No.
on.
But Jack Ruby, who's currently a neighbor of yours.
Yes, buried in Chicago.
You're right.
Yep.
Not too far from you.
No.
But it's a good murder ballad.
I've never visited Jack Ruby.
I did.
Did you?
Yeah.
I should one of these days.
Good murder ballad.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a country murder ballad though, so it doesn't. I don't give it that weight. But yes.
But it's kind of in the vibe of those, outlaw kind of.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's a good song.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then Sweethearts is sort of, if we have any anarchists listening in our fan base here, it's a good song that's super critical of kind of the Reagan Bush Bush 1 era. Amusing.
The lyrics are very clever, and for the entire album. I mean, they're well written songs.
Yeah. So give me.
Well,
I'm very defensive here, so give me. I want to stop talking and let you.
Yeah, I don't think you need to be. I think so. Again, genre-wise, sort of indie rock. The road that I was kind of interested, I thought you might go down is the indie rock road. But I don't want to dive into that right now. But sort of an Americana indie rock, all back to '89.
Well, when Jonathan Siegel was in here, they were very much more an experimental.
Right, it was a different psychedelic type band.
Yeah,
right?
and they do
or more punkish. They were more
experimental, more punkish, more you had more reggae influence, more.
They had Take the Skinheads Bowling in it. Great song. So here's my take on the album. There are a lot of good songs on this album. I like this album. I don't dislike it as much as you thought I was going to. So it's funny though, because I'm in a quandary with it. It's a two favorite album from songs for me. When I Win the Lottery and of course Matchstick Men.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's an album of. Like, if you rank the songs on a 1 to 5 scale, with 5 being the best, there's a lot of 3s on this album to me. I don't know how many 5s there are, but there's no bad songs on this album. Actually, and the ones that even you say are skips, I like. I like Flowers. And then you didn't even mention June or All Her Favorite Fruit. Easy for me to say. I Was Born in a Laundromat has a very grungy sound in 1989, which is kind of pre-grunge almost. Borderline, kind of a country reggae spaghetti western sound to it. So it's a really, genre-wise, it touches a lot of different things. It's not doesn't sound all the same. There's enough variety. The songwriting is pretty clever overall. So I think it's a really good album. It's just, like I said, I don't think there's any bad songs. There's just not a tons of 4s and 5s either.
Fair.
Yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
All right. I don't know how much more you want to dig into this, but so.
Yeah, I would listen. I mean, obviously, if you want to listen to the album, Matchstick Men is the song that you would probably recognize if you've been around for a while. But that's the one I would point to.
It's hard not to be danced to.
Yeah, when I Win the Lottery, I think is a really well-written song. Again, maybe for the anarchists out there a little bit. Depending on your leanings, you may or may not like it. But many, many good songs. And I do recommend this album.
So me too. If you want to kind of use this as kind of a jump off point for some other music. So the band broke up after this. They were down for a long time. They came back together. They recorded a bizarre. They recorded like song for song, blow for blow, and released an album of Tusk.
Yes, they did.
So
because they hated the first one and they thought they could do it better.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the members of Fleetwood Mac knew that, but they gave a thumbs up to the record. They said, "Oh, I really like what you did with it."
But an album that I think everybody should run out and grab. It's especially in this era. to all our anarchists listening
Yeah.
to it, is they did in 2004. They did an album called The New Roman Times,
All right.
which was a concept album, and it's about the rise and fall of an idealistic Texan whose disenchantment following a stint with the American military redirected him into organized terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
It has a lot of good music, and it makes a couple of interesting statements about the world and society, etc.
Yeah.
So that's the 2004 New Roman Time. And for you, sir,
Okay.
a Cracker album I'm not sure if you're aware of.
Yeah.
They collaborated on an album with Leftover Salmon.
Did they?
They did.
The band that I disparaged to their face by accident?
And they deserved every minute of it.
I,
It's we like kind of the folk bluegrass scene
yeah,
as
we
well.
were at Blue Ox.
And
And I was talking to a person next to me about how much I didn't like Leftover Salmon. And it was a member of Leftover Salmon.
Yeah. We saw them open for did they open?
No,
for
they
someone?
were the headliner.
Oh.
That's the problem. They were the headliner. Bonerama was opening for them, and then Dumpstaphunk.
Oh my God!
And so it wasn't so much that we didn't like Leftover Salmon. It was that Dumpstaphunk blew them out of the
Dumpstaphunk
water.
shouldn't be allowed to open for anybody.
Yeah, and so
Oh
when
my
Leftover
God.
Salmon, they just picked the wrong opening band. I've since seen Leftover Salmon opening for String Cheese at Red Rocks, and I didn't hate them as much.
Well, that's good.
So for all of our Leftover
Should
Salmon
go up to
fans
apologize
out
to
there,
the guy, yeah.
I felt bad.
But they did a bluegrass versions of their songs on an album called "Oh Cracker, Where Art Thou?"
Oh, nice. That
Which-
sounds like fun.
Yeah, so I mean, all of them like Eurotrash Girl, Low, Teenage Angst, they're all on there. So it's all the kind of these cracker songs and a bluegrass vibe.
I would like that.
You would,
Yeah.
recorded with Leftover Salmon.
Excellent.
And I love stuff, and that really actually speaks a lot to David Lowery. So with Jonathan Siegel, who's back in the band,
Okay. Well, Sparkle Horse probably isn't around anymore.
doesn't need him anymore.
Yeah.
He's back in the band when they reformed, so he's been in these. But David Lowery really kind of, and I think the reason this album worked is they went from kind of a lot of the experimental stuff they did when Siegel was in the band to more of the playfulness and Americana kind of styling, so the playful lyrics
Right.
and stuff.
I mean, it's still dark, but it's humorous, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you see a lot more of that in Cracker.
Yes.
Low and Eurotrash Girl.
Right.
Right. So, and it really does play well in a bluegrass vibe as well.
Yeah,
so,
totally. Totally.
So that's my pitch for New Roman Times and Oh Cracker, Where Art Thou? I think are both really strong and good idea of what David Lowery's all about.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's turn this thing one more time over to side 4. This is where you get the pleasure of ranking the album. So we
Why
are
you
at
make me do this?
we are at
15.
episode 15.
Yeah.
So it's getting to be quite the list here,
It is.
and you have to put "Wish You Were Here" in a stunning category of albums.
I do.
So
Yeah. Here we go. Is this it?
this is it.
All right.
In 1 through 15, where does this sit?
Well, number 1 remains Moondance by Van
For
Morrison.
crying out loud.
It is. It is the undefeated.
Now you're just
champion.
doing this to be spiteful. You're just trying to be hurtful.
No, I'm honestly not. But if it causes you discomfort, I'm pleased. Like it's a like a double entendre.
Oh, it's like, I'm out.
So
That is the dumbest thing you've said on this show.
So we apologize. You're just gonna have to watch all the other episodes to understand some of this stuff. The Doors is number 2.
Okay.
Wish You Were Here is number 3. Pink Floyd is so even for someone who doesn't have lists like the Beatles are number 1 for me. Pink Floyd is number 2. And the only reason I think "Wish You Were Here" is 3 is I have to make room for some other Pink
Floyd
Floyd
albums.
albums.
Yeah.
But it's ahead of Aqualung at 4.
Yeah.
And London Calling is at 5. So my top 5 right now would be Moondance, The Doors, Wish You Were Here, Aqualung, and London Calling.
All right. Well, okay. That'll be it. Yeah. I got nothing more for you, man.
All right.
All right. So next time, again, as we try and displace whatever the abomination Moondance, we are going to do the self-titled album from the Violent Femmes.
Excellent.
We saw them
At last summer.
last summer
At
at
Ravinia.
which was just amazing.
Yep.
So and they did this whole album. So we're gonna review this whole album.
Could give Moondance a run for its money,
yeah.
but I'm not going to jump out on it.
No, I'm
Save
not
that for next
Not going to hold my
episode.
breath here.
Yeah.
So we'd like to thank our producer or production team from Smidge Films, Chauncey there for all the hard work he does putting into these, our PR team from LR Media, and of course our sponsors, Deeper Connections Counseling, Diane Blackburn with Beard and Warner, Smidge Films, LR Media. Please punch that like and subscribe button. You can find us on anywhere you get your podcasts, and we're always on YouTube. Till next week, I'm Fat Guy 1.
Fat Guy 2.
We'll see you next time. You really don't like this album?
I like it fine. Never said that. I just said it's a
No.
like
it's
when
not.
you say it could
Not.
when you
Not.
say it could be a main album, I scoff that
there-
it's a main album.
Clap.
Wish you